Have you ever wondered what would happen if Zoro was reborn with all of his memories and powers intact? Could he get stronger? Could he prevent all the tragedies from happening and save everyone? And how much would he change the entire story? Well, as Zoro opens his eyes, he would be completely shocked to find himself in a baby's body. He questions how this is even possible, but Zoro being Zoro, he just brushes it off and assumes it's a weird dream. However, as time goes on, reality sets in. He begins to realize he has actually been reborn with all his memories. He decides to lay low with this massive secret and proceeds to train secretly for the time being. By the time Zoro is about 8 years old, he is already training his swordsmanship skills, becoming much stronger than he ever was at this age in the original timeline. Keep in mind, Zoro's mind contains his post-time skip arsenal, King of Hell, Asura, Advanced Armament, Observation, and Conqueror's Haki. Even though his young body can't handle the full output yet, he starts micro-training his Haki, eventually mastering Observation Haki early on. But the biggest change he makes happens when he consumes the GPS no Miai, so he will never lose his sense of direction in this timeline. And now, in the original timeline, Zoro famously lost 2,010 times to his friend and rival, Hina. Here, that number takes on a completely different meaning. Zoro knows he could end every match in a fraction of a second, but he chooses to lose or draw just to keep Queena's competitive fire burning. Zoro moves with terrifying efficiency. He uses the bare minimum of effort to parry her strikes, but it doesn't take long for Quina to figure out something is very wrong. After their 500th duel, she throws her sword down in pure frustration and asks Zoro why he keeps holding back. Then she asks the question that has been eating at her, whether he's doing it because she's a girl. Seeing how close she is to falling into self-doubt, Zoro decides to show her the truth. Instead of just telling her, he stops pretending to be weak and becomes a living benchmark for her to chase. Through that alone, he makes her understand that gender means nothing when someone can grasp the rhythm of the world. From then on, he occasionally trains her in secret and eventually teaches her the breath of all things, the same technique he once used to cut through steel and defeat Mr. One in Alabasta. From here, everything goes the same as the original timeline up until that fateful night. In the original timeline, this was the moment Quina went to the storage shed for a sharpening stone, lost her footing on the stairs, and tragically died. But in this version, Zoro knows exactly what's about to happen. Guided by his observation Haki, he is already there. As she slips, he catches her effortlessly before she ever hits the ground, his hands steady and his expression completely calm. From that moment onward, the two grow closer and significantly stronger. Eventually, they leave the village together on a shared quest to become the strongest swordsman in the world. Since Quina is alive, Zoro ensures she keeps the Wado Ichimonji, as it rightfully belongs to her, while he tracks down and claims the cursed Sandai Katetsu much earlier in his journey. These two would end up being an absolutely deadly duo, taking down anyone who crosses paths with them. Now, at this point in the story, Zoro knows this is where he meets his captain, so he recreates the moment perfectly. He kills Helmeppo's wolf, gets captured intentionally, and waits, tied to the post. He tells Quina to stay hidden nearby and to be ready to intervene if things go south. When Luffy arrives to free him and asks him to join his crew, Zoro doesn't hesitate. He accepts immediately and introduces Quina. Luffy, thrilled, gladly accepts them both. And with that, the Straw Hats have two powerful swordsmen on their side. From this moment on, Zoro takes on a big brother role. He's determined to protect everyone and ensure Luffy becomes the Pirate King, no matter what. Fast forward to the Orange Town arc, Zoro already knows Buggy's Devil Fruit is a paramecia and exactly what his weak points are. The second they dock, Zoro bypasses the fodder and walks straight into the circus tent. Before Buggy can even split, Zoro bisects him with a named slash drawn from his future memories. Catching Buggy's head midair, Zoro casually threatens to feed it to the Sea Kings unless Buggy spills everything about the Grand Line. Terrified by Quina, who moves like a New World monster, Buggy breaks. When Nami tries to steal the map in the chaos, Zoro catches her wrist. Looking her dead in the eye, he says quietly, "I know what Arlong did to you. You're coming with us. No running." Nami is freaked out, but moved by the genuine, fierce protectiveness in his voice. She decides to stay and joins the crew. Something similar happens with Usopp. When the crew arrives at Syrup Village, Zoro already knows Usopp will become a great sniper, and that Kuro is a psychopathic threat. He doesn't let that fight drag on, sensing the Black Cat pirates. With observation Haki, the second they arrive, Zoro unleashes a silent Tatsumaki variant, blitzing the entire crew in under a minute while Luffy handles Kuro. Just like before, Usopp joins the Straw Hats. Before they leave, Zoro pulls Usopp aside privately, warning him about future dangers and advising him to start planning for a sturdier ship. That night, during the village party, Zoro gives Usopp his first real power-up, teaching him the absolute basics of observation Haki, laying the groundwork for him to grow much stronger and be ready for the battles to come. Now, the Straw Hats have their core crew members, but they are still missing a few. Everything goes the same as the original timeline, with Zoro ending up battling Mihawk at the Barati. Zoro knows Mihawk is coming. When Don Krieg arrives, Zoro one-shots Jin with a casual slash and steps up. When Mihawk offers to fight with his tiny knife, Zoro doesn't wait. He activates basic armament Haki from the start, fighting the Warlord to a standstill for 5 straight minutes. Mihawk's eyes widen with pure excitement. This East Blue rookie is putting up a genuine fight. Mihawk finally draws Yoru, while Zoro is incredibly strong in this timeline. His current body still can't take down the world's strongest swordsman. Hina joins the fray, but they both inevitably lose. However, Zoro doesn't cry this time. He retains his composure and iron resolve. Mihawk acknowledges them as the future and tells them to find him when they have reached their utmost potential. When the Straw Hats reach Arlong Park, Zoro remembers every single tear Nami shed. He knows this arc solidified the crew's bond, so he keeps things relatively the same up until Arlong shows his face. Stepping in front of the crew, he tells Nami, "I'm handling Arlong. You stay with Luffy." He also asks Quina to stand down, walking into Arlong Park alone. At this point, Zoro has trained his body to the point of being capable of using his Asura form, but only at 20% power, the maximum his body can handle without breaking. Before Arlong can even process what's happening, Zoro activates his Asura form and cuts through the entire park and Arlong's body cleanly in half. Standing over the defeated fishman, Kokoyashi village is freed in a single moment. Nami officially joins. Her trust in her crewmates absolute because someone finally protected her without asking for anything in return. When the crew arrives at Logtown, they meet Tashigi, who freezes upon seeing Quina, as they look identical. Everything goes mostly the same as the original until Smoker attacks. Zoro completely shuts him down using armament haki. When Buggy traps Luffy on the execution platform, Zoro doesn't panic. He casually cuts the execution ropes from 200 meters away with a flying slash. Entering the Grand Line, Zoro knows Laboon's tragic story, and instead of fighting the whale, he pulls out a flute he bought in Logtown and plays Bink's sake. Laboon calms down instantly. Zoro tells Crocus the truth about Brook and the Rumbar pirates, promising they will bring him back. When Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, also known as Vivi, show up, Zoro captures them instantly, forcing them to reveal the entire Baroque Works hierarchy before Alabasta is even on the horizon. With a crew now possessing full intel on Baroque Works, Whiskey Peak changes from a trap into a complete joke. When the Straw Hats arrive, the town of bounty hunters throws their usual massive welcoming party. In the original timeline, Zoro stayed awake because he suspected them. In this timeline, Zoro already knows who they are. He lets Luffy, Usopp, and Sanji eat and drink to their heart's content because he knows the food isn't poisoned, it's just a distraction. Once the crew is fast asleep and the Baroque Works agents draw their weapons to cash in on the bounties, Zoro asks Quina to step out onto the roof with him. While they wait, Igaram, Mr. 8, and Miss Monday order the 100 bounty hunters to attack. Zoro doesn't even draw his swords. He looks at Quina, smirks, and unleashes a short, highly controlled burst of Conqueror's haki. 98 of the bounty hunters foam at the mouth and instantly collapse. Zoro drops down and easily disarms a terrified Igaram and Miss Monday. Since Zoro already extracted Vivi's true identity at Reverse Mountain, he cuts straight to the point. He tells them exactly what they need to hear. Because Zoro handles the threat silently and cleanly, Luffy never wakes up confused. There's no ridiculous Zoro versus Luffy fight over a misunderstanding, and the next morning they set sail immediately with Vivi under their official protection. Now, at this point, Zoro begins to realize he's been interfering a bit too much, and it could raise suspicions among his crewmates. So he decides to lay low and let arcs like Little Garden, Drum Island, and Alabasta play out exactly the same as the original, with Robin and Chopper joining the crew. The only difference is that the Straw Hats would be much stronger than they were, thanks to Zoro's training and guidance. Their bond would grow even stronger, with the crew members relying more and more on Zoro, seeing him as a leader figure. Moving on to Mocktown, Bellamy tests them. Zoro and Luffy sit at the bar and take the beating. When Quina reaches for her sword, Zoro stops her, telling her the fight isn't worth their time. He lets Luffy go back later to deliver the legendary one-punch knockout, preserving Luffy's growth. They ride the knock-up stream flawlessly. Once on Skypiea, Zoro uses the priest's mantra as a live training exercise, explaining the concept of observation haki to Sanji and Luffy. When God Enel attacks, he believes he's invincible. To give his crew a reality check on what top-tier power looks like, Zoro steps in. He coats his swords in deep black armament haki and casually deflects Enel's massive lightning strikes, completely terrifying the god. But again, Zoro leaves the final blow to Luffy, ensuring he grows even stronger. Fast forward to Longland. Here is where the Straw Hats meet their first real threat, Admiral Aokiji. Zoro knows Aokiji is a necessary wake-up call for the crew, but he refuses to let Robin be traumatized or Luffy be frozen solid. When Aokiji makes his move, Zoro and Quina step in front of the crew. They unleash a coordinated advanced armament haki strike that shatters Aokiji's ice instantly. Aokiji's eyes widen. He realizes these two swordsmen are already Yonko commander level. Deciding this crew is far too dangerous and complex for a casual arrest, Aokiji leaves with a stern warning. The crew doesn't lose, but they are terrified by the Admiral's sheer scale of power, motivating them to train harder under Zoro and boosting their abilities even